Anytime there's conflict inside of us, there's going to be, stress potentially and anxiety that comes from that conflict of those competing desires. What is going on, EQ gangsters? Hope you guys are doing amazing. This is going to be 15 interview questions to ask someone about their job that you enjoy. So this was based on a conversation that I recently had with Dr. Jerry Novack. He gave me permission to share some insights and stuff from our conversation. I've done 2 other episodes about Jerry. So one was with Jerry, an actual interview with Jerry. The second one was insights that I gleaned from another conversation that I had with Jerry a while back. So I've got 2 other episodes. I don't know if you can search for Jerry, Jerry, or Jerry Novack. It may come up in the search in the podcast to get to know him better. He's a super guy. He's actually one of my jiu-jitsu coaches. He's a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and he's also a PhD. He's done, I want to say maybe 15 years of counseling. He was a flag level. He was a major lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and as a counselor, licensed professional, counselor and therapist, and also, he's got a background in personal training as well, loves personal training. So, for anyone that is blessed and lucky to work with Jerry, you've got both personal trainer and counselor therapist in the same person, literally. So he's a super guy. And I always get so much from my chats with Jerry. He has got some great awareness, some great self-awareness, which is something that I am daily striving for, just daily asking God to reveal more insights about me, more lessons, more connections that I can learn and discover about how God made me, and also not just how God made me, but also from injuries, emotional injuries that I'm not aware of, emotional injuries that I haven't healed or worked through or grown from yet. And, I've interviewed some people recently on my podcast that have got just a tremendous amount of self-awareness. And it's just, again, full transparency, I envy those people that have a tremendous amount of self-awareness, because it has been a journey for me, and it is not easy. Emotional work, I was telling somebody recently, it is not easy to do emotional work. It's just not this, physical fitness is not easy. Emotional fitness, I would argue, is even harder for many of us. Now, maybe for some of you, it's maybe been easy peasy, lemon squeezy, but not for me, man. It is not. It has been challenging journey over these past 4+ years. Now, it is incredibly rewarding work and worthwhile, worthy work to do self-discovery and grow from said self-discovery. So, the purpose of emotional intelligence, like I say often, is not so we can all, hold hands and sing Kumbaya and bathe in essential oils and, sniff Skittle farts, right? It is to become a healthier, more productive human being, to become a more effective, productive leader in your family, in whatever organization that you're a part of, to be a more effective entrepreneur if you own your own business. And so far, this journey has helped me do all that. God has really, really helped me tremendously in each of those areas. Every big rock of my life, faith, marriage, parenting, finances, fitness, business, has improved as a result of committing to a daily emotional fitness program. And I would challenge you, for some of y'all that have, I guess if you're listening to this, you're already, hopefully making this podcast or YouTube channel, depending on how you consume the content, a part of your fitness program, your emotional fitness program, which is awesome. So big kudos. I have met a lot of other people that, I know all about EQ. I can define it for you. I can tell you, what do you want to know about EQ? And I said, man, that's great. I've even taken an EQ course. I've read a book on EQ. So they could tell me all the intellectual skinny about EQ. Then I ask them this question: what is your daily emotional fitness program? And then the tap dance starts. Well, I know all about EQ. No, that's not what I'm at. That's great. I know all about, I know a decent amount of information about getting in shape. But am I? Right? I'm still, 50, 60 pounds overweight. So head knowledge is different than application. Now, thankfully, I'm back in my jiu-jitsu, regimen. I'm doing, daily, almost daily, but, 99, I'd say 28 out of 30 days of every month, I'm doing body squats and push-ups, and along with my jiu-jitsu stuff. And so I'm building up into a more consistent, more robust physical fitness program. And as important as a physical fitness program, I would argue emotional fitness is as important, if not more important, than a physical fitness program. We know that we should work out for our body. Why don't we take our mind and our emotions, our heart and our mind as seriously as our body? So that's my challenge for you all. If you do not have a consistent daily emotional fitness program, how can you start one? How can you hold yourself accountable? How can you take ownership of your emotional growth so that you can make emotional fitness part of that daily program? Your heart and your mind are worth it. Your heart and your mind being as fit as they possibly can are worth it. And for those of you all that want to do it in community, check out our EQ Mafia. Just go to eqgangster.com, check out our EQ Mafia, and it's a great group of like-minded folks that are all working on our emotional fitness together. Okay, so I learned some great things, and I'll give you the 15 questions that Jerry asked me. He's doing something. He's taking some college courses, some more education, even though he's already got his PhD. He's taking some more courses. And in one of his courses, he wanted to sit, he's got to sit down with somebody and ask them about their particular job. And, assuming that it's somebody's job that you are interested in or have some sort of connection to or with. He's got a PhD in this stuff. He is also doing some life coaching as well, in addition to his personal training also. And, I do executive coaching. That's how I pay my bills, and am blessed, by God to have some amazing companies that I'm working with, their leaders, to help them become the most emotionally intelligent leaders that they can possibly be to impact the organization. One thing I say in a lot of the podcast episodes is emotionally healthy leaders create emotionally healthy cultures and organizations, which lead to maximized and optimized outcomes and results. So him having a background in counseling and therapy and coaching, and me as well doing executive coaching, leadership coaching, he's like, hey, let me talk to Noble. Obviously he knows way more about psychology and stuff than I do. And just having an interest in EQ and emotional intelligence and stuff as well. He's like, let me talk to Noble and ask him some questions. So he asked me some great questions that I want to share with you all that were really great and really made me do some introspection and reflection. And then also just in conversation with Jerry, here are some points that came up that I thought was fascinating. Again, I love talking to self-aware leaders. Jerry is one of those guys. And also what I appreciate about Jerry is he is still working on himself. He has not arrived. Even though he's got a PhD in this stuff, again, which does not mean that someone has done emotional work, by the way. That means they have done a lot of studying and all that kind of stuff, not to take anything away from the PhDs out there. but I have met a number of psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists, and counselors that have the degrees and all that kind of stuff that have used it as a coping mechanism for their own emotional dysfunction, but have not applied the stuff that they've learned to their own life. So the degree is a cover for the work that they still need to do in some cases. Again, I'm not saying I'm just saying there have been a number that I've met that are like that. Jerry, fortunately, is not one of those guys. He may have pursued his PhD as a result of some things that he's experienced in his childhood, which many people do, by the way. I am one of them, as being emotionally clueless my whole life. Now I'm teaching other people how to be healthier emotionally. So I am one, just like Jerry. My childhood and adulthood impacted what career path I have ended up in at this point. And Jerry, I would say, also has kind of had a similar path in that regard. But what I appreciate, again, one of the many things I appreciate about Jerry is he is still working on himself. He is still doing the tough introspection, reflection, growth work that is necessary to become the best version of him that he can be. Again, a lot of people, a lot of people don't have the courage and bravery to do a lot of that internal hard work that is required to become emotionally healthy. So some things that, and again, Jerry gave me permission to share some of this stuff. So to share this stuff. So whatever I'm going to share with you, he gave me permission to share it. So I want you guys all to know that up front. And also check out, he's got a YouTube channel, and I'll include all that stuff in the show notes. Because I don't know it off the top of my head, the name of his YouTube channel. But if you search for Jerry Novack, Novack, you'll probably find it. He also has a couple Facebook groups that I will include in the show notes. So anyway, so I'll give you ways to kind of be able to connect and follow his content. He has some great content. So in talking with him, one of the things, again, in his vulnerability and transparency, he said, Noble, and he said, man, I even hate admitting this, but I desire praise and recognition, and also I desire to remain invisible. Fascinating, right? And I love talking to people who are self-aware. That's some tremendous self-awareness just to know that about yourself. Do you know what you desire? So just knowing that he desires praise and recognition and also desires to remain invisible. Well, so again, that's great awareness. Also, and he's aware that those are conflicting, because if he gets praise and recognition, on one side, here's the other thing that he's super aware of. He's like, it makes me feel good to get praise and recognition. And then equally, check this out. He said, I also feel ashamed getting praise and recognition because now he's not invisible. Right? I love that self-awareness. That's huge. So other people's self-awareness help me to do that reflection too. Like, okay, well, what about me? What do I desire? And are the things that I desire at conflict with each other? Which again would create anxiety and tension. Anytime there's conflict inside of us, there's going to be stress potentially and anxiety that comes from that conflict of those competing desires. Now, where did it come from? Again, more self-awareness, more great awareness from Jerry. Jerry had what I would describe as a very traumatic childhood. His father was very verbally and physically abusive, and which is heartbreaking. For me as a father, I cannot fathom treating my daughter the way that many of you have been treated by your parents, one or both of your parents. It's heartbreaking to me. Heartbreaking. And he heard two consistent messages throughout almost his entire entire childhood. You're an idiot, and you are a stupid POS. And heartbreaking to hear that. And I can only imagine, and he said, Noble, I heard that, if not daily, 5 to 7 days a week. Now, this is something I also say periodically on my podcast. What happened to you as a child is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to grow and heal from. It's not your fault what happened to you as a child. It is your responsibility to heal and grow from. And so my heart breaks on one side for Jerry based on what he experienced as a child. Knowing, though, that it was not his fault. It was not his fault that his father treated him that way. That's also a huge, I'm not coming up with the words, revealer, or, it's a huge indicator of just how poorly his father was treated when he was a child. That stuff is generational. That stuff rolls downhill. That's how you get generational abuse, generational addiction, generational trauma, because that stuff rolls downhill. Unless you get someone in the generational, in the family lineage like Jerry, who says, it's going to stop with me. What happened to me was brutal. And he's not using these words, right? These are my words here. That but for me, it's brutal to hear what happened to Jerry. But Jerry has taken ownership of his own healing and recovery, and so not only for himself, but he's also ensuring that he does not repeat the patterns of his father to his children, to Jerry's children. And now, and Jerry is. Again, I haven't, ever met his kids or anything like that. I think I've seen his kids once at Jiu Jitsu, but Jerry is a very intentional father, which is amazing. He communicates verbally and physically his love for his children. That is awesome. Is he a perfect dad? No, probably not. Just like, heck, I'm not. I don't know anyone that's a perfect, parent. But thank God that Jerry has taken ownership of changing intentionally how he was treated as a child. And that's not easy, y'all. Like I'm sure most of you know, that is not easy to change those patterns. It's very easy to parent the way you were parented. Or at a minimum, it's very easy to parent from the place of pain that was caused by how you were parented. So you may say, well, I'm not going to be the same parent that my parents were to me, but you're still parenting out of the pain that came from or comes from how you were parented, how you were raised as a child. So we had that conversation, super insightful, that Jerry had that awareness. So trauma changes us. We can choose to make us bitter or better, and that is a choice. How can you take ownership and heal from the trauma that you experienced as a child, and how can you choose to make you better again and not bitter? That requires intention. And as always, when you're doing any kind of emotional work, if you feel like with some of the stuff that you've been through, if you need a professional, seek out a professional. Seek out a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a therapist, a counselor that can hear you, see you, understand you, value you, accept you, and provide a safe place for you to heal and grow and change and recover. Again, if you need that, please get professional help, and also find the right help. That first psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, counselor may not be the right one for you. The second one may not be. The third one might not be the right one for you. Find the right one that's a good fit for you. Also, something that Jerry had mentioned was recognize where he recognizes that a lot of the scripts that he still hears in his head are not coming from him. They come from his father. They still come in his father's voice. And he recognizes that. In some of the things that, one of the other thing he said that Jerry shared with me, I think was great, very insightful. A lot of times he will undervalue himself. Well, that's not shocking at all based on what the scripts and the stories that he heard from his father 100 times, 1,000 times, 100,000 times for day after day, week after week, month after year after year, decade after decade. Not shocking at all that some of those old voices, old scripts are still playing. And thankfully, because of his self-awareness, he can recognize those. Oh, no. That's not coming from me. That is not my voice. That is not accurate. That is not true. I am not going to be manipulated and controlled by my past, by that old voice that is not mine, that is coming from my father, who was a very emotionally hurting individual, that he would say that kind of stuff, right? So recognize where those voices and scripts come from. Then a couple other great questions that Jerry asks himself. One, how do I treat myself to optimize growth? I thought, wow, that's a powerful question. How do I treat myself to optimize and maximize growth? Next question, how do I treat others? How do I want to treat others? So how should I treat myself to optimize and maximize growth in and from myself? How should I treat others? And am I doing that? Am I treating others the way I want to treat others? The way I should treat others? So some great things. And the last thing is, Jerry is kind of finding his way in and through entrepreneurship and business ownership. And he's kind of working through and navigating, as I am also working through and navigating, what do I want out of business ownership? What do I want out of being an entrepreneur? For me, the reason why this is such a tough question for me still is I had almost 2.5 decades because I was a people pleaser addict, low EQ, low emotional maturity, high codependency, high emotional neediness. I took on the dreams and goals of everyone else around me in that business cult I was in. And many of them, most, I would say 90 to the tune of 95 to 98% of them wanted all the big houses, the fancy cars, the planes, the jets, the travel, the trips, the 5-star resorts and hotels, and multiple homes, and that's fine. If you want that stuff, that's super cool, right? That's whatever floats your boat. Because of all my emotional dysfunction, I didn't think about it. I just accepted that as I guess that's what I should want also. Those are also my desires. And because you had to get permission for everything, of course they would say perspective. You need to get perspective, which was really meant permission. Because if you didn't accept and take and follow their perspective, there were consequences. Maybe not physical consequences, but there were in a way there were physical consequences, because your relationship would change with them. They would change their relationship with you if you did not follow their advice. You would know that the relationship dynamic had changed through guilt, shame, condemnation, disappointment, fear, control, whatever leadership style they chose. And so, you were trained, okay, this is what I should want or desire or whatever. And 2.5 decades through the formative years of my adulthood, that is what I was under. And so now the last, thank God, 3 or 4 years of emotional freedom from that organization, that emotionally unhealthy environment, I'm learning how to dream again. What does even dreaming look like? How do I even think about dreaming? How do I even think about goals? How do I even think about developing what I want? What does God want for me? So anyway, that's kind of the phase that I'm in. So what do I want my business to look like? What do I want what should my mission statement be? What should my goals be? What should my dreams be? How do I even think about goals and dreams in this new emotionally healthier state that I'm in, and therefore much healthier spiritual state that I am working on and working in and working through as well? And really evaluating, okay, now that I don't have that pressure, outside pressure, okay, God, what do you want for me? What goals and dreams, should I have? Do you want for me? And all that stuff, right? So anyway, so that was some great insights that I got from Jerry in this recent conversation. The 15 questions he had was, number 1, tell me about what you do, Noble. Okay, that's fairly easy. And ask yourself these questions, right? Answer these questions for yourself sometime. Noble, what was the path to get you where you are right now? That was fun, and that's pretty standard. You guys have all heard that from me. Number 3, what does your typical day look like? And I would even change that to be, what do you want your typical day to look like? 4, what skills are most valuable in what you do as an executive coach, a leadership coach, as a podcast and YouTube content creator, as a membership facilitator, host and facilitator and creator, with the EQ Mafia. Number 5, how long did it take to build the business? Now that's a whole nother God story, which I think some of you guys have heard before, but that's another whole nother episode. But God basically took us, from 0 to 6 figures in less than 2 years, and basically a year and a half. Again, total God story, total, like legit. Number 6, what tools do you use in running your business? Which for me is also, so not just tools, but what systems? What systems do you have? What systems do you need to run your business or to be more effective in what you do? Number 7, what is your favorite part of what you do, Noble? I thought it was a great question. What's your least favorite part of what you do? That was 8. Number 9, what training or experiences prepared you for what you're doing? Number 10, what accomplishments are you most proud of? That's a great question. What accomplishments are you most proud of in your own life, in your own journey? Number 11, how do you handle conflict? Y'all, that is one of the biggest proof of growth areas of my life, period, of this whole emotional growth, emotional health, emotional intelligence journey. I am a completely different man when it comes to conflict now. I didn't do conflict before, and when I did conflict, it was a train wreck. 100% of the time, it was a train wreck. And now, completely, I embrace conflict now compared to how it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Number 12, what types of clients do I work with? What types of people do you work with? What types of people do you like to work with? A couple of the questions I like to ask from that as an offshoot to that question. Who brings the best out of you? And who do you bring the best out of? Great questions to think about. Who brings the best out of you? Who do you bring the best out of? For me, it's leaders. Leaders bring the best out of me, and I bring the best out of leaders. For me, that's my answer to that one. Number 13, in what ways do you help your clients? Do I help the leaders that I work with? Excellent question. Excellent question. Number 14, what are your plans for the future? What are for your business for the future? Which again, I've already kind of hit on that. I'm still working through that and trying to define that. Number 15, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self if you could go back? Excellent question. What do you guys think? How would you answer that? How would you answer that question? What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self if you could go back? Take some time, pause this, rewind it, go back to some of those questions, jot those questions down, and make some time, schedule some time to spend with yourself answering some of those questions, some reflection time, some introspection time. Growth comes from getting out of your comfort zone. Growth comes from intention and attention of reflection. So more reflection, more learning, growth, and change. Less reflection, less learning, growth, and change. If you all got value, if you could just take 15, 20 seconds, if you wouldn't mind, rating and reviewing the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on, sharing a comment, maybe an insight, a question that really resonated with you. If you wouldn't mind just taking 15, 20 seconds, it would really, really mean a lot. Thank you for sharing an episode that really impacted you with a friend or family member. Thank you for subscribing, again, rating and reviewing. Totally appreciate it. Continue, man, your emotional growth journey. You are worth it. Your family, friends, coworkers, company, organization, team, unit is worth you becoming the best version of yourself. Emotionally healthy people help heal other people emotionally.